Welcome to another episode of Ordinary Leaders. The focus of the podcast is leadership, and my philosophy is that we all have the capacity to lead, and leadership looks different for different people. Obviously, some people have hierarchical titles, but some people are just neighborhood leaders, and I just want to dispel that myth that you have to be a CEO or a president or something to lead. So we're really excited today to have Dr. Kris Marsh. Kris and I met at the concert, and we'll get into that a little bit more. But Dr. Marsh, I'd love for you to just introduce yourself and tell us about all the amazing things that you do.
Well, thank you. And it's such a pleasure to be on the podcast with you. It truly is a joy. So as you said, I'm Dr. Kris Marsh. I'm a sociologist and demographer at the University of Maryland, College Park. I wrote a book about people that are single and living alone in the Black middle class, but I'm so much more than just that, right? I also am an avid golfer. I never thought that I would like golf. I now golf, I swim, I have my mental health Mondays. I also really try to model a well-balanced life for my students. That's very important to me. And now, lately, I have become a huge Kendrick Lamar fan. Or sometimes with academics, we think of us as one-dimensional, but I truly try to be multidimensional. And I appreciate the multidimensionality that people have, because we're not just one thing, we're multiple identities. And I'm trying to embrace all of those.
And tell us a little bit about the Love Jones Cohort. What was the moment that you were inspired to write this book?
That's a wonderful question. And I'm not sure if there was like this one moment that inspired me to write the book, but I saw this pattern and trend happening. So my sisters and I, we bought a house together in Leimert Park. I'm originally from Los Angeles, California. And so we bought a house together, and we realized that on our same block, there were two other people that were single, living alone, and they were also homeowners. And so at the same time, I'm being trained as a sociologist and a demographer at the University of Southern California. And I'm reading all this literature, and I'm immersed in the literature, but I just don't see this demographic of people that are single and living alone in the literature. And so I was like, I think this is a great opportunity to fill in the gap. There was literature talking about how marriage rates have changed for racial and ethnic groups, way more pronounced for Black America, but it didn't extend the conversation to say what that means for the rise in singles. But I'm seeing singles buying these houses on my block, and I was like, I think there's a conversation that's being missed, or I think there's an aspect that's being missed. So that's where I said, I, as a scholar, want to insert myself in the conversation at the intersections of decrease in marriage rates and the rise in singles that I saw on my block, and then write a book about it. So that's kind of how the book came to be.
So I want to start with a pop quiz, just for fun.
Oh my gosh. Okay. We're going to see how good I do on this pop quiz. Okay.
All right. So the pop quiz is about the movie Love Jones.
Oh, God.
The first question is just a softball. Who are the two main characters in the movie Love Jones?
Nia Long and Lorenz Tate.
Yes, but what were their names?
Ooh.
Characters.
Yeah, can't help you. Dimitri.
It starts with a D. Definitely starts
Darius.
with a D. Darius. Yeah. And
I have no idea what Nia's not.
It's so close to Nia. It's so close to Nia. One more letter in there.
Nina,
yes.
Nina.
Darius and Nina. Ooh, that was the easy question, girl.
Okay,
let me see.
I am not ready.
Okay, all right. Here's another one that should be easy. Okay. What was the name of the poem that Darius performed when he meets Nina?
I can't help you.
You got this. Oh,
I know they're in Chicago.
You know it. Okay, yes, that they're in Chicago at the Sanctuary.
I got a thing for Nina. I got a Jones for Nina.
Okay, close.
I got a Love Jones for Nina.
A blank for Nina starts with a B.
Yeah, no.
It's a musical genre. Listen to the music in the background. What kind of music was playing while he was doing?
I got the blues.
The blues for Nina. Yes.
This is horrible.
Oh my God.
Okay, because here's what is really important. I am like not a pop culture scholar. I don't really watch a lot of TV. And so the way the title came to be is that my colleague kind of helped me think through the title. So I then had to go watch the movie. So the book is not about the storyline, it's about the demographics of the character. I've
Yes,
only watched Love
yes,
Jones a couple of times.
yes.
I don't know the storyline, but I kind of know the characters and their back.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. That is what was so beautiful about the film, right? You have these two single folks who are professional and they just had it going on. Oh,
Right.
they were fly, they were sexy, they were outside. So I appreciate that title of your book. I love that. And I love how often our own lives inspire our work, right? So I think about this conversation as it relates to my work in the sense that my research and the impetus for my business was inspired by my own experiences. So there's so much of our own lives that we pour into our work.
But
And
so you know what's really interesting about this conversation, and I want the listeners to kind of think through this a little bit. As a trained social scientist and as a sociologist, one of the things we're sometimes trained to be is objective. Like you want to stand back and look at a social issue and then try to understand it, research it, explain it, give explanations, give policy implications around it. But there's also a side that says you have to be in it and really understand it to be a part of it. I tell my students all the time, I don't care where you sit in the conversation. I just care that you sit in the conversation. So whether or not you're an academic, whether or not you're a professional, whether or not you're a leader of some sort, whatever that means to you, you have to decide whether or not you want to be objective and stand out and look in, or whether or not you want to be there in the midst of it. There's no right or wrong, but I, Kris Marsh, come to this research from a very subjective point, not from an objective side.
I think that I try to do both. I try to have that objectivity, knowing that this is part of my experience and holding space for other people's experiences to be different,
Yeah.
right? I think that's the important piece for me. Some of what I learned when I was in graduate school, like you are researching all the time. I got a couple of projects going on here and there. And so for me, like that is always what informs what I want to pursue and what I want to study. What
Yeah.
am I noticing? What am I experiencing? And how am I having big feelings about this? And if I'm having big feelings about it, are other people having big
Yeah.
feelings about it too?
I have done objective
Mhm.
kind of work and I've stepped back, but I was like, at this point in my career, I'm like, I really want to lean in and I really want to have co-creators, like the community members, to help me think through some of these things. I think if not, it's like you just feel like you're the authoritative person and you're coming in doing this research in this area. And that feels disingenuous to me. And that feels kind of slimy. And I prefer to not be that academic at this point in my academic career. I'm a full professor.
Yeah,
It's also important to say I'm a full professor, so I've got flexibility.
yeah, I'm always fascinated when there are voices that are having completely different experiences than I am. And
Yeah.
that makes me lean in a little bit more too, right? Like, what do I need to be doing differently? Or what are the factors that contributed to you having a really different experience? So, talking about singleness, right? So, that's when you said what you were doing when we met, I was like, "Ooh, single, let's talk, girl." So, what are some of the things that you noticed that were unexpected in your research? I think about my positionality as a single mom and all of the biases that kind of got laid on me by other people who had this solitary idea about what that meant. And then when they got to know me, they were like, oh, wait a minute. I got to rethink this whole thing now because I didn't fit that stereotypical mold. And neither does my son. Girl, I had people to tell me your son's gonna be incarcerated just because I was a single mom. I had people to tell me, oh my God, I feel so sorry for you. The things that I have experienced, and granted, I was living in Texas at the time when I raised my son in Texas, right? So just thinking about all of these conversations, because we talk about the danger of the single story, like one story about what it meant to be a quote unquote single mom. And I know that, that was intersectionality. So as a single person, there were those stereotypes that I had experienced, and then as a single mother. So, what were some of the things that you found, and you talk about in your book, that maybe were contrary to what people would ordinarily think was going on with single folks in the middle class?
Okay, that's a really great question. I first want to just briefly talk about like how the title of the book came to be, what the purpose was, and then I'll talk about like things that kind of like just were like, wow, really? So the title is Love Jones Cohort. And so it draws from the movie Love Jones, and it also draws from my training as a demographer. So Love Jones the movie, but cohort is a demographic term, and it just means a band or a group of people. And it's quite funny because I remember I was on a panel and we were reviewing this woman's work, and she ended up getting a Nobel Prize, which I think Kendrick Lamar is going to get one too, but I said it first. Okay, so she ended up getting a Nobel Prize. And I kind of critiqued her a bit in her work because I was like, you know, why? I wish you would have just said that this was a book about white women and not just about women because it's a different
Mm,
story for Black women. But she said that her publisher told her not to use cohort in the book because people wouldn't know the term. And I put
mm.
cohort in the title of my book because people that may not have access to higher education, I wanted them to learn a new term. Again, we're always thinking about leadership and how we can like educate, how we can move the conversation forward for everybody, right? So I said, okay, I'm gonna merge pop culture and my training as a demographer and came up with the title, The Love Jones Cohort, which is so cool because my mom will be in the grocery store. She'd be like, Chrissy, the people, the cohort of people in the produce section. I was like, Mother, you just out here using cohort just because you can be out here using cohort. So one, I wanted to kind of like educate people, but then also I say this everywhere I go and I stand by this. I'm trying to destigmatize singlehood. People will
Yes.
and people will get in, stay in, and be in relationships that are abusive, toxic, unfulfilling, and unrewarding simply because they don't want to hold the title of single. And so I'm trying to destigmatize singlehood. And in some ways, my pastor said, it's kind of like your ministry. It's like I'm giving people another narrative. I want to make sure I go on record saying I think Black marriage is a wonderful thing. It's a beautiful thing if it's done right. But I'm not going to be out here promoting marriage for the sake of marriage. Now, to your actual question, about what did I find that was like an aha moment or kind of like challenged some of my thinking. There are two things that were exciting about the book to me, writing the book, and two things that really just I struggled with as a scholar. The first one, I was trying to decide on whether or not I wanted to write the book about Black women, because Black women dominate the category, but they're not the only people in the group. There are some Black men that are single, never been married, don't have any children. So I didn't want to exclude them from the conversation. But there were two things that were exciting to me about the book. One is that Black women that were single in particular, they really had a larger network of people that they could draw from. They had a community that really helped them through their singleness and helped them think through being single. The Black men did not have those same communities to the same degree and in the same kind of ways. And so I do really hope after reading this book, and I do hope that everybody reads the book or gets the audiobook. No, I did not narrate it. We can normalize community and non-romantic nurturing relationships among men. That men even said, like, I don't want to be thought of as gay. I don't want to be thought of as being soft if I have these non-romantic nurturing relationships. In other words, these really intimate relationships. So I hope that after reading this book, we can normalize it. The Black woman got that thing on lock. We got that thing on lock. But Black men, they need to be a little bit more open and transparent and vulnerable and be open to those kind of relationships. So that's one thing that I was like, oh, I thought Black men kind of had that, but we're not seeing it. These are just the people in the cohort that I spoke with. The other thing that I struggled with as I read this book, I was trying to figure out if there is a stigma, who stigmatized more when you're single? And so coming from my perspective, you know, we all have our biases, right? I was thinking that women might be more stigmatized. And I talked to 64 people that are in the Love Jones cohort. Stigmas across the board. Some people said if you're younger, you're stigmatized, which I thought was so fascinating because they were like, if you're younger, you have a bigger dating pool. So if you're not dating someone, clearly something's wrong with you. If you're older, some people have died off, so it's not as bad. I was like, wait, what? If you're a woman, you're thought of as being a ball buster, or you know, I hope I can use profanity because I like it. But for illustration purposes, you're thought of as being like educated Black bitch, right? And you don't have time. And if you're a man, it's like, oh, clearly you must be a pedophile. Clearly you must be on the down low. Clearly you must be some kind of freak or something like that. So I couldn't even tell you who was more stigmatized, but what I can tell you is that the common denominator is that as a single person, you're constantly stigmatized. There's always an assumption that something's wrong with you and they're just waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Yes, 100%. Have you seen this trend on social media with the men calling their friends to say goodnight
Yes.
and the friends responding in anger and offense and
E, all of the above.
yeah, all
Yeah.
of the above. And every once in a while, there'll be a person who's like, "Hey, like, are you okay? You're not checking out on me, are you?" Or every blue moon, there'll be somebody who say, "Yeah, man, thank you. I love you." But it speaks to your point about intimacy among men in general, and particularly among Black men, whose that socialization is so jacked up. Oh my
Right.
goodness, it's
Right.
a mess.
And that's one thing
Um,
I think comes out of the book. People are like, okay, yeah, we need to have these sister circles. Yeah, we need to have play
yeah,
dates with our men. Go get some play dates.
yeah. I do a group coaching cohort, and I asked them to do a final project. And so one of the guys decided that he wanted to have a cohort of fathers to get together and talk about fatherhood,
Oh,
married, single, whatever it is, but just that hunger for men to get together
yeah.
in kind of an informal, organic, let's just see each other and talk about life, kind of way. So I'm
Right.
really happy about that. If you're outside of a fraternity or even in church, sometimes that's really difficult for men to have those intimate, really vulnerable, transparent relationships. I think about some of the stigmas I face. So I can deal with the ones around education and even the ones about being mean or a bitch or whatever. But the one that bothers me the most is the one where if I am the only single woman in a group of married folks, it's like, hide your husband.
Yes.
And it's so frustrating. The offense comes because I feel like it questions my integrity.
Right. There's an issue with being single. It's like, okay, well, there's clearly something wrong with you. You don't have a moral compass,
Mhm,
or you are batshit crazy, or this or that.
mhm.
So you always are under a suspicious eye. So I would admonish everybody to think about how they think about singles. Like, spend some time, ask yourself the question, like, how do I think about singles? And you see, it's really funny because I was talking to somebody and I was saying, do you know how hard it is to be a single person? Because everything and all the social institutions push us to being married and being partner. Do you know how strong we have to be out here as a single person? Because there is a suspicious eye over us the entire time. Something must be wrong with them, this, that, or the other. It's like, it's not easy being single. However, yeah, I'm very happy with my singleness, right? Because people think like marriage is like, it's like the panacea. If I can just get married, all my social ills are gonna go away. And people are like, oh, I really want to be in a relationship. I want to be in a relationship. Honey, you got to be in a relationship with yourself first. If you don't want to be with you, why you think someone else is gonna want to be with you? And so it's like, one, you got to be in a relationship with yourself. Two, you have to think about whether or not and why you want to even be in a relationship with someone else in a romantic kind of way. Is it because you're told that's what you're supposed to do, or you really actually want to do that? So we just like privilege marriage. I think marriage is just like the pinnacle of success, but that's not always the case. And you got a whole bunch of married people that aren't necessarily happy either. We have to have a conversation about that. I'm loving my life right now. I am enjoying life. And I think because I demonstrate Black joy, some people don't know what to do with that as well. They're like, she has to be lonely. She has to want to hook up with somebody. I'm like, I am very content with where I am, but because other people have to have other things to make them happy or other people to make them happy. I think I'm witty. I think I'm engaging. I think I'm mildly entertaining. I enjoy myself. But people just have this assumption like you're lonely. I pull the covers up over my head and cry myself to sleep. I'm living my very best life.
There was also a post on Instagram where this person was commenting about a mom who wanted her daughter to marry. And it was about like, oh, I know he's abusive, just stick it out, it'll be fine. And so the comment was, this must be one of those Gen X moms. And I said, baby, Gen X is out here living our rich auntie best world traveling lives. Okay. We are out here free, fly, fancy.
Right. Right.
So no.
And I'm not indicting marriages or anything like that or married folks, but I think sometimes people they see us and they're like, I wish I had this level of freedom where I can just get up and go. So since they see that, they don't know how to really articulate that. So the first thing they do is kind of just look at us in a negative way and just throw some kind of like negative label or negative assumption
Yeah.
onto us. And that becomes highly problematic. It's like we have the freedom. It's like maybe you need to be in a relationship where you have this level of freedom too. I don't know.
That's the question that I always ask. What would the relationship need to look like for me to give up my freedom? I love my freedom. And every time I ask myself that question, I'm like, yeah, this was not the answer to that question. Oh
Right.
my goodness. So, and again, we all have to be in pursuit of the things that we want in our lives. And that's the thing that I want, right? My freedom. But I also think about, relationships and what make relationships work. Those skills are the same skills that you need in leadership. You got to be a really strong communicator. You got to have a vision. You got to have just kind of the ability to do some planning. Like all of those things are things that are really necessary to make relationships thrive and marriages thrive. Most people aren't even thinking about that, right? So to your point, when relationships aren't healthy and successful, a lot of times it's because people haven't given it the real deep thought. They are just following what the social norms dictate. I
Right.
wonder if there's a question that people always ask you about the book, and if there's a different question that you wish people would ask you about the book.
The question I get quite often, but I'll give you two of those. Then I'm gonna give you a question I would like people to ask. I've done a lot of like podcasts and book events. I actually did some in London earlier this year. I'm going to South Africa. So I've been around the world kind of talking about the book. And if it's not the first question, it is within the first three questions. Are you single? Let me tell you,
Mm-hmm.
on a side note, it's funny. I do not give dating advice. I don't, because I actually talking about singlehood, right? But if I were to give dating advice, I would say write a book about singles. They go slide into your DMs when you write a book about singles. They go find you on social media. I was like, read the book. I don't have a problem being single. I don't have a problem
Yeah,
being single. I don't. I'm
yeah.
like, So I get that question like all the time, which I'm okay with the question, but it suggests that again, there's a deficit. It's like she's wonderful, she's smart, she wrote this great book. I was like, why are you single? I'm like, I even say at the end of the book, I hope we're just as likely to ask people, why are you married or partnered,
Mhm.
as we are to ask people, why are you single? First of all, we shouldn't be asking anybody. But if we're going to ask anybody, let's ask everybody. Do not discriminate and only ask single people why they're single. Because again, what that suggests is that there's a deficit with singles. You can have all the academic pedigree and all the alphabet soup behind your name, but as long as you don't have an MRS degree, that's all that matters. Au contraire. So either we asking everybody or we're asking nobody. Let's ask married folks, why are you married? And not just because I love them. If I got to come to these events with an articulate answer when people ask me, why are you single? You're going to have to come to the conversation with an articulate answer. And I also say in the book too, when people ask you that question, this is directly to Black single professionals or anybody that's single and has somebody that's single, you can tell them this. When someone asks, why are you single? The easiest and most benign response you can give, but force the other person to think about it, is say, well, what do you mean by that? So when someone says, hey, why are you single? Like, what do you mean by that? First, they're going to stutter. Then they're going to stammer. Then they're going to say, well, you know. I'm like, well, no, I kind of don't know. What do you mean by that? So then they're going to say, well, you're so pretty. You're so smart. You're so engaged. Okay, so what do you mean by that? So eventually they're going to understand the errors in their way and be like, oh, well, never mind. It pushes the onus back on them to think about the fact that regardless of who I am as a person and what energy I might bring to the conversation, the only thing that matters is whether or not I'm partnered or married. Come on now. So the question I often get a lot when I talk about the book, because I do talk about the middle class, because that's really important to me. Let me tell you why that's important to me. Is because I decided early on, and I say this wherever I go, and if you get it, you get it. And if you don't, it wasn't for you, or maybe it needs to be for you. But I say this everywhere I go. Like one of the things I decided early on in my academic career, I decided I would not pimp the poor to make my academic career. There are a lot of people that don't look like me who spend their entire career talking about poor Black America. I am not suggesting that there is not a poor Black America, right? I suggest there is. And I think that there's great artists that can get us to understand Black America, especially poor Black America, better than any scholar ever could. But I said, I'm not going to pimp the poor to make my academic career. All of my research looks at the Black middle class in one aspect or another. So whenever I say I study the Black middle class, the first thing people say is, well, I make such and such money. Am I middle class? And I'm like, oh my gosh, okay. So yeah, that's, I'm like, okay, it's not one, it's not that easy. Two, it's we have to understand there's a
God.
difference between being rich and being wealthy, right? And so we're talking about the Black middle class. I'm talking about your income, but I'm also talking about your wealth. Because if we have a global pandemic and the world stops on its axis, like it did during COVID, do you have assets that you can draw from if you need to, if something were to happen? So it's not just about money. So I wish people would have a say to me like, can you kind of help me think through what we know about middle class, as opposed to saying, am I middle class because of how much money we have? Because we really do have to have a conversation about estate and wealth planning. And we definitely have to have that conversation for people that are single and living alone. I don't care how much you have. I don't care how little you have. Whatever you have, make sure you have it in a will or a living trust. So in case something happens to you, people know what your wishes are. And so I just wish we'd have more of a conversation about like, what is the Black middle class or what does middle class actually mean? Real quickly, I also think that it doesn't make sense to just have a just blanket middle class measure. I think it needs to be relative to the racial and ethnic group that you're talking about. But that's just me thinking that it shouldn't just be a general conversation. It really should be relative to Black America or to Latino America or whatever it may possibly be. It shouldn't just be a general, this is what it is, because we have to understand there's race that kind of complicates our lived experiences. So yeah, that's my very long answer to a very short question.
No, that's great. I mean, you brought up so many things, right? So you brought up this idea of why am I single? And then
Right.
the second thing that you brought up was this idea of financial literacy, which is another equity issue. The idea that most of us don't learn about the answer to your question, what even constitutes middle class. And it reminded me of a conversation that I was having with some girlfriends. We're at dinner. We would go to dinner all the time. And, we were talking about prenups. And a couple of the girls said, like, I would never sign a prenup. And they just went on and on and on and on. Tyneeta, what do you think? And I said, if you don't require a prenup, that tells me you don't have anything. So as for me and my child, the assets that I've accumulated going to my baby, okay? When I bought a house, I decided that this was going to be his house. So I'd be damned if I get married to somebody and all of a sudden the things that I've acquired go to somebody else. I want them to go to my child. Now, the things that we have together, we purchase together, then yes, they are ours. But my baby needs some stuff, okay? So
I
we're gonna
love
have a
it.
prenup. We're gonna have a prenup for my little 50 cents. I'm sorry. That's just what it is. Okay?
But what I think is so important about this, people think you have to have a whole bunch to get some of these legal
Yes.
documents. I was your 50 cent and my $82, they gonna go where it's gonna go. You think you got to have like these millions of dollars in the bank account, and that's a misnomer that I really want to push back at people to
Yeah.
think about. Like, yeah, I don't care how little you have, how much you have. Please make sure you have documented legally what your wishes are if something happens to you. And because we all get ready to be out here traveling and we're gonna be outside, it allows you to breathe and be a little bit more comfortable when you go into Africa, when you go into Johannesburg, when you go into London. You're like, because I know something happened to me, I know where my stuff is going. It gives you a certain level of freedom. And it doesn't cost you a
Mm-hmm.
whole bunch, but it gives you a certain level of freedom. And to your first point, stop policing Black women, stop policing single women, stop policing women, period. But because most of my work focuses on Black single women, I want to say that again. Stop policing Black single women. Let us do what we want to do. If we want to date up, date down, don't date. Let us do what we want to do. Stop policing us. You tell us how big our butts should be, how big our butts shouldn't be. You tell us how long our hair should be. You tell us how natural. You tell us how loud we should or should not be. Stop policing Black women. Let us be. Let us just be. And let us sit in our rest. Let us rest.
Yeah, and to your earlier point, we are so multifaceted. Because I'm gonna take me a nap, I'm gonna write a book, I'm gonna get up and twerk. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to do all the things. I'm
Right.
going to advocate for equity. I am going to give keynote speeches, and then I'm gonna go hang out with my girlfriends, and we're gonna ball till we fall. And I'm gonna worship, and I'm gonna pray, and I'm gonna do all the things. So, to your point, like, leave us alone. And we are also the blueprint. Those of us who are living in our truth create this sense of envy. I wish I could do that. And so I've noticed that when people try to knock you down, try to cut your legs out from under you, I had to learn to refuse that and to be even bolder,
Right.
be even louder. As
Right.
you can see, like, I'm like, look, I didn't dye my hair blonde.
Listen, I'm out here going to concerts. I got these little short shorts. You see all my cellulite, all the dimples in my thighs, and I'm loving every minute of it. I'm like, yeah, I'm 51, and what? Listen, but
Yeah.
I appreciate what you said. We do have to think about, we have to prioritize rest as Black women, because if we're not careful, we can put on that Superwoman cape and we can do it all. It's like, we
Yeah.
have to prioritize rest. So one of the things that I do is I have my mental health Monday. Everybody knows I have mental health Monday. My mantra is I do all of the things that I want to do and none of the things that I have to do on Monday. I really do advocate for my students. I admire and adore my students. I would have left academia years ago, but I love my students. That's the only reason why I'm still a professor. So I'm like, give me my rest. Give me my rest, give me my space on Monday. I was like, sometimes I'm like, I am not using my voice on Monday. I don't want to hear my voice till Tuesday. Sometimes I just want to sit and I just want to be. And we don't allow Black women the ability to rest. We don't allow us the ability to rest. We have to take our rest. The other thing is that with Black women, they want us to be everything to all things. I was like, I'm being everything to myself and only myself. And then that can allow me to like help my students, but I've got to just make sure that I tithe to myself first. That's the way I think of Monday, is tithing to
Mm-hmm.
myself. I'm giving myself
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
first fruit of the week. And then I can give myself to everybody else, but I've got to give myself the first fruit of the week. And then to your last kind of like point, and I want to come back to this because this is something I'm kind of teasing out and thinking through as a scholar, is this idea of Black joy. And in this world, which, has never been kind to Black women, this America, the world has not been kind to Black women. So when we demonstrate Black joy in spite of, people don't know what to do with that. So a couple of things typically are going to happen. One, we're thought of as suspicious. Two, we're thought of as not being serious. And three, because they don't know what to do with it, they try to exploit it or they try to cannibalize it. So Black joy is something people don't know what to do with. But as for me and my house, I'm still demonstrating all the Black joy that I can. And part of my ability to demonstrate my Black joy is to make sure I lean into my mental health Mondays. Thinking about being a leader, I'm trying to also model to my students. If you're an academic, you've got to figure out that this is a marathon. You got to be strategic. You've got to carve out time for yourself. I can tell them that till I'm blue in the face, but I can also say, today's mental health Monday. Don't call me. What do you want? Why are you bothering me on a mental health Monday? In fact, I've drawn my boundaries and I've also modeled to my students. My students will text me, email me, call me, be like, Dr. Marsh, when you read this text tomorrow,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I
Yeah.
got you. I got you.
Yeah.
And so now,
Yeah.
now my students are like, yeah, Dr. Marsh, I have a mental health moment. I have a mental health this. I was like, yeah, because we need to also talk about mental health and well-being. That's a conversation we have to have. I mean, let's just have it.
Absolutely. I think the thing that you're teaching them is part of what I talk about a lot, right? So I'm about to go to the University of Pennsylvania to present a workshop on restorative leadership. And so creating this balance between our vision and what we want to do and centering our humanity. And that's what you're teaching them. Center
Yeah.
your humanity. You're not a robot.
Right.
You are a human being with needs and feelings. So I think a lot of times as leaders, we are so in our heads that we are disconnected from our bodies, and we think about the academia, we think about all the tasks that are involved, and we want to get this done and we want to get that done, and then we got to get to class, and then we have to do our research, and then we have to write, and then all of these things. The first thing that we have to do is really check in with ourselves
Right.
and gain that understanding of what it means to be grounded, what it means to center our bodies and our own needs, and what it means to center joy. I know that that makes us better people in addition to better leaders. Me, as an equity practitioner, I post things that are joyous. I post things that give me energy because that's a form of resistance, right? So
Yes.
the systems do what the systems do. And in spite of those systems, I am going to continue to show that I am thriving. And that's what I want to model for people. That's what I want people to see,
Right.
because that is what I hope that my coaching and consulting pulls them into. Move away from that grinding, because at the
Oh,
end of the day, when something happens to you, guess what? The next day they will
the
have a
next
replacement
day,
for you.
oh, listen, it'd be out there the same day. It'd be out there the same day they posted up your job description. Same day, same day. But I also think, and I'm actually kind of speaking to myself because I know I used to do this, and I'm so much better at doing this over the years. I also am thinking from my students' perspective. I have to congratulate my students when they do rest. When my students get a publication, I'm like, yay, congratulations on the publication. We're like, oh, Dr. Marsh, I took a winter break and I rested. I'm like, yay, you rested. We don't always say that. We can say, oh, we know you can get back to it. You got the fall. No, let's make sure that we celebrate rest as much as we celebrate any other level of accomplishment, because these systems don't allow us space to rest. We have to take our rest. So when you as an act of resistance, when you take your rest, that should be celebrated just as much as any accomplishment that you have.
Absolutely. That's something I do with my son as we transition into this whole GNX situation that we got to get into. It's hard when you're flying all around the world, when you're in different time zones. I've talked to him about having a practice like wherever you are, touch some grass, go find a park, take a breath, take a beat, take a nap,
Right.
because those are the things that, in spite of like the constantly trying to keep up with the pace of the tour, most of my listeners know that my son's on tour with Kendrick Lamar, and it's really difficult. It's a high
Right.
paced tour. It's hard. The pressure. There's a gazillion people in the audience, and you perform at a high level. But please go and take a nap. Please take care of
Right.
yourself. And I do say, oh my God, I'm so happy that you did that, and we
Right.
got to do more of that. We really do
Right.
for each other. Yeah.
And I appreciate you for that so much. Let me tell you what's annoying me just a little bit. And your listeners don't know yet, but I'm also on tour too. Air quotes, on tour with Kendrick Lamar. Is going
Yes. Yes.
as many cities and states that I can go to, and many countries. So I think as we speak, this is number 20 that I'm going to. I'm going to Paris for number 20, my 20th show. And then people are like, well, did you go see this in this place? Did you go see this? I was like, listen, if I get to the Eiffel Tower, good. If I don't, I'm going to find me a picture online and put it on my social media. Y'all going to think it's me taking a picture of it. So leave me alone. Don't tell me what I'm supposed to do on this tour, what I have to go see. I don't have to go see anything. If I only want to go to London to hear Kendrick Lamar in London, that's what I want to do. So please don't tell me what I need to go see. At the end of the day, how do you really know my pictures are really seriously pictures that I even took?
And also, again, it's that assumption. It's that thing of us like imposing ourselves on other people,
Right.
right? Just like, let me do me. You do you, let me do me. And I think I would just say that in general as an approach to life.
Yes.
Stop centering your own desires, your own experiences. Let people do what they do. Let people do what they need to do. Because at the end of the day, sometimes I'm really happy just sitting on my hotel balcony, looking at the view,
That I paid
eating
for.
lunch,
I done
drinking
paid.
tea.
Listen, I done paid for this whole hotel room. I done paid for this robe. I done paid for these slippers. I done paid for this bed. I ain't leaving because I done paid for it. And do you pay for it? Do not come in here and tell me what I need to do and what I need to see when I am in other countries. I'm good.
Yes. And help us understand, like, what are you doing on tour with Kendra, girl? What are you doing?
Okay. Okay. Wait. I do want to say one thing, because, and then I'm gonna get to that. I promise. So I appreciate this conversation. We're talking about policing people and really letting people do what they want to do. My book is published with Cambridge University Press, and I actually got to go and present my work at Cambridge University. And one of the audience members, I told him I'd give him credit. He had said, "Well, Dr. Marsh, you're talking about how people should make friends, and you're also saying we shouldn't police people. So aren't you kind of like policing people, telling them they need to make friends?" And I was like, touche, touche, good point. Absolutely good point. Yes, You don't have to make friends, but I want to be clear about what the data suggests. Now, the data does suggest that you don't want to be in social isolation. You want to have relationships with people. And so, especially as you're aging, the data is kind of clear, especially for never married, long term, never married. As we age, we tend to be happier in life. Part of the reason why we tend to be happier is because we have a network of friends. We have friends that we can go golfing with. We have friends we can go to concerts with. We have friends we can use profanity with, friends that we can go to church with. People that are in relationships or in marriages, they find themselves returning back to singlehood and they don't know how to navigate it. And so they're not happy as they age. So if you're thinking about happiness and how to thrive later on in life, you might want to consider having social interactions and not be socially isolated. But again, I don't want to police y'all. Do what you want to do, but I just want to make sure I kind of made that clarification. So let's talk about Gen X. I have to be honest and completely and totally transparent. I was born and raised in Los Angeles. I knew Kendrick Lamar, but I didn't really follow his catalog. But then when the song Not Like Us came out, I happened to be up late working one night with some students and the song came out. And I was like, oh, this is a great song. I did not know who the rapper Drake was. I was like, I don't know who he is. I don't care. The song is great. It was an elixir to my soul with some of the things I was going through at the University of Maryland, College Park. It was truly an elixir. So I was like, listen, I'm going to the first show. I don't want to read about it. I want to be about it. I'm going to the first show. Talking about community. This is so fascinating. I went to the
So
first,
wait a minute. You were in Minneapolis?
I was in Minneapolis.
Oh my God. Yeah,
I
I
went
was there too. Okay, yeah, okay.
But let me tell you, so I went to the first show. This is kind of getting to this idea of like leadership and how we have to model, no matter if you're modeling for your community, for your household, for whatever it is. Okay, so I'm sitting at the show. I spent all my money on my ticket. I was like, the doors open at 5 o'clock. I'm gonna be there at 4:45. I'm gonna be there for the entire experience because I done paid this ticket. So I'm literally there with the workers. They like cleaning up, and I'm like, good morning, hello, hello, hello. So I'm sitting there by myself, and then this woman comes and sits next to me, and I just start talking. If you can't tell, I can talk. I'm a forced extrovert. So I'm start talking to the woman, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm just here for Kendrick Lamar. When he sings Not Like Us, I'm gonna sing. I don't know any of the other stuff, but I'm here. I don't know who SZA is, but I'm like, she a black woman, so I'm supporting her, blah, 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 blah. So the lady says to me, she's like, your voice sounds so familiar. So I'm kind of like, maybe I should be in radio or something. She's like, no, I think I know you. I was like, wait, what? She's like, have you done a podcast? I was like, well, yeah, I wrote this book about people that are single. She finished my statement and living alone in the black middle class. She said, I'm gonna tell you who you are. She pulled out her phone. She scrolled through her phone. She was like, yes, you are Kris Marsh, a professor in Maryland, and you wrote a book called The Love Jones Cohort. You were on a podcast October 21st. You told me to stand confidently in my singleness. I'm from Chicago. I came to this show because you told me to stand confidently in my singleness. Now I am sitting next to you. She had tears being up under her chin after she finished that.
Wow.
I was like, listen, I done put on my good mascara. I can't be crying up in here. Listen, I can't. So yeah, I was like, you know what? A prophet gets no respect in their own home. I had to go all the way to
Mm.
Minneapolis to meet this woman. So I'm just glowing, just glowing. The next day, I'm in the gym working out. Kendrick Lamar and a security detail walk into the gym where I am working out. So
That's wild.
I'm like, can I please take a picture? And they're like, I was like, I can't even believe I'm in the gym working out with Kendrick Lamar. My students are not going to believe it. I just want to take a selfie and send it to my students. My students are going to be like, oh my gosh, Dr. Marsh, oh my gosh, only you. This is a great opportunity for me to now go as a solo concert goer. And one of the things that people have asked over and over again in the first book is how do you make friends later in life? That is a legitimate question. You have your
Yeah.
sandbox friends that you've had forever, but how do you like legitimately make friends later in life? So I'm getting ready to use Kendrick Lamar and SZA's Gen X tour as a case study to say, can you make friends? What I'm trying to do is push us to think differently about the term friends. In my first book, I argue that we need to expand the definition of family. And this gets back to some of the conversations we had about financial literacy. If I am single and living alone, I don't show up in the data as a family. I show up in the data as a household. The current definition of a family is someone that you're related to by blood, marriage, or adoption. There are benefits to being labeled a family versus a household. The tax structure would be one benefit. I, Kris Marsh, don't have a spouse, don't have a partner, don't have children, but I have assets, I have properties. Who are my properties going to go to? I have a dearest girlfriend. Her husband died, her son died. Why can't we be a family? And my assets go to her daughter because she's my goddaughter. She's going to get everything anyway. But if we're legally recognized as a family, I don't have to worry about some of the capital gains taxes stuff that my goddaughter would possibly have to pay. That's the argument I'm making in the Love Jones Cohort book. We need to extend the definition of family. I now want to write a book based on my ethnography, which is being embedded in the culture of the G and X tour, to say we need to broaden the definition of friends. If you think of friends as solely someone from your sandbox that you've had for 30 years, you might be depressed. You might be lonely because you don't have friends. Why can't you go to a concert for 2 hours and 35 minutes and make a friend? I have made what I define as 48 friends in the 20 shows that I've already gone to. So I am like really pushing hard back against this idea of friends and trying to be more expansive. Because to be more expansive, I think people say, hey, that barista that I go to every day to get my coffee, that is a version of a friendship. So I'm not out here by myself. So I'm not socially isolated. Because again, social isolation is not necessarily physiologically or psychologically good for us. And so that's what I'm trying to do with the Kendrick Lamar and SZA GNX tour. And I'm
Yeah.
loving every moment of it. When I tell you every moment of it, I'm loving every single moment of it.
Oh, it's amazing that you use this vehicle for that research. And I do think you're in the Midwest. Like, I'm from New Orleans, and everybody is your cousin. Everybody is your aunt. Like, that's just how we are. Nobody's a stranger. We're going to take care of everybody. Here, it's really hard to infiltrate the social group. And everybody's like, these are the people that I went to elementary school with. These are my friends. You are a transplant. We don't know about you.
Right.
I had somebody tell me they thought I was a scammer. I was being friendly, and they were like, that's a little strange. You're just too nice.
Right.
And now that I am not tethered to a particular organization for work, I have had more opportunity to build relationships, to meet people. And it's very interesting to observe who is open to that and who isn't.
Yeah.
And mostly here in Minneapolis, it's people who are transplants. We will connect with each other. We will host dinners for one another. We will do all the things. The folks who are from here are kind of rigid in their definitions of friendships.
Yeah.
And I agree 100%. The research says that our overall health and wellness is tied to our ability to be socialized.
Right.
So again, going back to what you were saying about Black men, they need each other, especially single Black men. Married Black men don't have a lot of friends either most of the time, but that is tied to their heart attack rate, the rates of strokes and high blood pressure and all of these things, because our nervous system calms down when we're with people that we know, like, and trust and love.
Right. It's so funny you said that. And this is another air quote friend that I met on the flight going to Arizona. So I went to the Arizona concert. It was a Black pastor, and he was married. He said, let me tell you, he's like, whether or not it's consciously or subconsciously, I appreciate the freedom you have to build your networks. But whether it's consciously or subconsciously, married folks stop building their networks once they get married. And so I would want us, first of all, put your insecurities to the side, address your insecurities, but let's continue to build networks. Because he said, I can't go home and tell my wife, oh my gosh, I met this wonderful, engaging woman on the flight. The wife gonna be like, oh, did you? But I do think it's really important that we continue to build our network. We need to work on our insecurities that we have and check some of our biases, but we really all need to continue to build our network. You don't stop once you get married. You shouldn't stop once you get married, and you shouldn't stop once you get older. I'm having a whole age conversation in my field notes that I've taken with these tours, because I'm like, yeah, I'm older, but even though I'm older, I was like, I have a youthful spirit. I can still make friends. You still should make friends as you age. You should continue to build your network. You should never stop building.
The name of my consulting firm is We Consulting, and it is based on humanity's interconnectivity. Like, we actually need one another.
Yep.
I went to Costa Rica, and I was on this beach called the Whale's Tail. We were getting in a boat to do some whale watching, which is a whole nother disaster of a story, where I started crying on the boat because I was having an anxiety attack in the middle of the ocean, because the guy who was driving wanted to kind of make speed bumps in the boat. He was doing too much.
Okay.
And I had a full-on panic attack in the middle of the ocean where I couldn't see any land. But anyway, the guy who was taking us out on this boat talked about the fact that the tsunami in Japan caused the sand on this beach to change.
Wow.
In Costa Rica. So if we don't think we're interconnected, if we don't think that it's only 6 degrees of separation, if we don't think that we need each other, that whether we believe that or acknowledge it, that to me was a perfect example of just how small the world is and how much we need to really pay attention to what's going on around us and understand that when we're in community with one another, we're just better
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
We have what
Yeah.
we need to be
Yeah.
good,
Yeah.
especially in this political time. Oh my God, everybody should be trying to make more friends right now more than ever.
More than ever. Absolutely. Absolutely. I wholeheartedly
Yeah.
agree. And, one of the other things that comes up in this kind of conversation that I've been having with myself over these 20 concerts that I've gone to is this whole idea of like energy and how the energy that you get out is energy that you get back, and how like energy can help build
Mhm.
community, can help build your relationships. And so I think we underestimate energy, and we really need to think more about energy.
Define energy. You say like what you put out is what you get back, but what do you mean by energy? Because I'm a big energy person too.
Right. So here's the most interesting part about this. As social scientists, to my knowledge, I'm just new in the literature, we aren't really operationalizing energy, and we're really not talking about energy, but energy is so powerful. And it is this that connection you have to someone else. There are some people that you get down and you sit on the metro and you sit next to them, you're like, yeah, that energy's off. I'm not talking to them. There's the next person you sit
Mhm,
down, you're like, oh,
mhm,
that energy,
mhm.
I'm feeling it. That's contagious. Now we in a whole full conversation. And we're in a hopeful conversation because I don't know you, but your energy is good. I can be more transparent and vulnerable with you than I can with other people. It's kind of this idea like a stronger tie versus a weaker tie. The stronger the tie is, the less transparent you're going to be. The weaker the tie is, you can tell a person everything, like the bartender effect. And so
Mhm,
energy, I
mhm.
think that people put off this kind of like this positive kind of aura, energy, however you want to call it. There's a real thing to it, and we don't give it enough credit. And I'm just trying to, as a sociologist, to think through like, what is this? How do we actually operationalize it? How would we define it? If you were to read it in a book, how would you explain it to someone else? I'm struggling with that, but it still needs to be discussed. I just don't know how to do it yet.
The Body Keeps Score and My Grandmother's Hands are two books that are central to my practice, and they talk about this idea of energy. But our nervous systems are built for that, right? We have receptors. We're giving out energy and we're taking in energy at all times. And
Yeah.
so, to your point, when you walk into a room, that goes back to that embodiment. If you build that skill, you refine it and go deeper in kind of developing your awareness around those receptors, you get better at it. They're there, they're always sending messages. Our nervous systems are always picking up stuff. It's kind of like when I said I tell my son to go touch grass, because
Right.
when we're out in nature, that feels really good. We are receiving that energy. There are things in our bodies that are the same chemical makeup as the elements in the earth. And
Mhm.
so when we get better at recognizing that, when we get more in tune with it, then we have a lot more control over it. We can say, oh no, the vibe is wrong in this space.
Right. Right.
I gotta go. I have to go
Right.
because
Right.
I'm receiving this and I don't want that. Yeah, I have to go somewhere else where the energy is a little bit more light and positive. And that is also a part of kind of what I teach leaders, because as a workshop facilitator, especially talking about issues of race and identity, I realize that I have to always be grounded in my own energy, because there's so much stuff that goes on in the space when I'm facilitating. And if I let that take over, then I get thrown off. So I try to emit the energy that I want everybody to sit in when I'm facilitating the workshops or when I'm having those conversations, because that puts us in the space where I need us to be in order to receive the information I'm sharing.
Right.
So I do hope that you find more literature around that, though.
I'm really excited to get immersed in the literature around this. So, any listeners, if you know anything about this idea of energy, please send it to me.
Absolutely.
You can find me on social media, and please send it to me. You can email me. Please send me the information. I'd love to read it and incorporate it into the conversation I'm having about this experience.
Okay, so I have one more question for you. It's the secret shenanigans segment. I want to hear about a story that is funny or something that just was really off, wild, messed up, or went left around your leadership, around your research. your current project as in your travels, secret shenanigans.
Okay. I hope this works and it's not salacious, but it kind of makes you think. And I teach a race course, and I used to start my race course out with this. So I'm a swimmer, and there's a whole assumption that Black people don't swim, right? So just moved to Maryland, and I went to this pool. I won't tell you the name of the pool. And so I had all of like my swim attire on. And I had like a real swimmer suit, the TYR $80 swimsuit, my swim cap, which, by the way, swim caps do not keep your hair dry. I had a video go viral on TikTok, over 1 million views, because people think swim caps keep your hair dry. They do not. But I had a swim cap, I had goggles, blah, blah, blah. So the lifeguard comes over to me, a little young person, young lady, and comes over to me and says, "Can you swim?" And so I said, "I do okay." Let me tell you, I'm a Leo. And so my ego kicked in. I got in that water. I swam for an hour straight. I lost my lungs at about 48 minutes, but I didn't even care. I swam for hours straight. I did my flip turns. I was going down and back, down and back, down and back. Now, let me tell you why I start the conversation with that. On a side note, to add to the salaciousness of the story, my swimming is so good. I don't believe in moving water. I believe in being a stealth bomber. You can't hear me, you can't see me, you can't feel me coming, but I'm getting through that water. I used to swim in California when I was a graduate student getting my PhD, and there was a retired pimp. Hey, he just said he was a retired pimp that swam at the pool. And so one day he said to me, he called me Doc. He's like, "You're gonna get your PhD, we're gonna call you Doc." He's like, "Doc, if you was one of my hoes," I was like, "Nope, retired pimp, I need for you to stop right there." He was like, "No, no, no, just hear me out." He was like, "If you was one of my hoes, your name would be Symphony." Clickbait, I ain't gonna lie. So I was like, "Okay, retired pimp, why would my name be Symphony?" Because he said, "Every time you get in that water, it looks like you composing a symphony with your body." I was like, "What?" If that retired pimp could have talked in my ear long enough, I would have been selling my body for him. So let's not judge people who sell their body for somebody else. But back to the point about the pool. So what I do is I start that conversation every day in my race course, because I ask them, did the lifeguard come over to me because I'm a Black woman? And some people say yes, and some people say nothing else besides my race suggested that I didn't know how to swim. Everything else that I had the right attire to swim, to be a swimmer. They felt the need to come over and ask me. And it's funny how some students say, "Oh, she was just doing her job and this and that and the other." I was like, that's a definition of white privilege. I, Kris Marsh, have to think about this. This happened in '08. We are in 2025, and I still think about that experience. So that's something I think is kind of like a salacious kind of conversation. And ask yourself, what do you think? Do you think it was because I was Black? Or was she just doing her job, or was it something else? So I think that's the way I kind of want a story that I think I like. And it was my introduction to the state of Maryland. I really like Maryland, but that experience still resonates with me today.
That is the piece that I think more people need to understand. So when we have these interactions, they don't just go away, they stay with us for
Right.
a long, long time and become a part of the work that we have to do to place ourselves differently in the world, in our own minds, right? We have to work real hard not to internalize that stuff. And I also want to say this idea that Black people don't know how to swim, like so many other generalizations that folks make. These things
Right.
come from history. They're not just made up. And that comes from the fact that for a long time, like we as a group did not seek out opportunities to swim because during the 50s and 60s, people put bleach in the pools that we swam in. And there were a lot of other things that happened to us to deter us from seeking out pools
Right.
on a regular basis.
At the end of the day, I think the lifeguard should have just done their job. If you see a new face, because they were like, "Oh, Dr. Marsh, you're a new face," so she wasn't sure. I was like, "Okay, if I'm a new face, you watch me. You don't come up to me and ask me. You watch me. That's your job. You don't have to come here and indict me." Did you indict anybody else up in here?
And she probably didn't even understand why she was seeking you out to ask that question and where that came from, this idea that, oh, I need to go and check on her because she might not know what she's doing. She might have all that expensive gear for nothing.
Listen, I was not gonna stop. I was like, "I'm gonna swim for 60 minutes straight." I was like, "I'm gonna swim." I was like, "Now I know I can swim for 60 minutes straight."
Hilarious. Okay, so we're going to see each other in London,
Yes.
and maybe
Just maybe, if we're lucky, we might get some footage of us together in London on the GNX tour. Tell everybody where they can find you if they want to get in touch with you, if they want to buy the Love Jones Cohort, if they want to stay tuned and learn about when you publish your new research. Let them know where they can hit you up.
Yes. So I am on all social media platforms with the exception of X, which was also Twitter. My handle is Dr. Kris Marsh. That's DrKrisMarsh. I also have a website, which is Dr. Kris Marsh, and you can buy the book at all major bookstores. My preference would be that you go to like an independent bookstore. If you go to my website, you will see some independent bookstores there. You can always email me too if you have any information that can help me push this conversation forward about this energy and about community and about being friends. My email address is kmarsh1, that's kmarsh1@umd.edu.
Awesome. Thanks for spending a few minutes with me today. I hope this episode reminds you that leadership is within your reach, flaws, fears, and all. If this episode resonated with you, feel free to share it. Feel free to email me at wecoachingandconsulting@gmail.com. And as always, remember that you are already enough and you have everything you need to lead right where you are. Until next time, take care, stay courageous, and keep leading with love.